All right, I want to share with you one of my mentors, Ken McElroy, who has built a $1 billion real estate portfolio. I follow him on YouTube. He's got some great free advice, and he's somebody that's climbed to the top of the mountain, and he has some really good mindset tactics in real estate. And so I wanted to share with him because I'm just vibing on how spot on he has been. A guy with all the options in the world, but yet just has such wisdoms, and he shares them freely with his audience. So let's go ahead, and there's two big things that I want to share that he echoes, but it's best coming from him. So let's go ahead and get that rolling.
Everything that society has told you to do. Work hard, save your money, and wait your turn. But realistically, you are still falling behind. Over the last 40 years, I went from being completely broke to building over a $1 billion real estate empire. So today, I'm going to give you the exact blueprint I wish that somebody would have handed to me when I had absolutely nothing. So one of the most dangerous lies that I wish I would have learned earlier that still the middle class doesn't really understand today is how inflation is a slow, invisible thief. Saving, of course, feels responsible, but it causes you to fall behind. So let me give you an example. So when I was a young man,
So he echoes what I've been talking about, where inflation. So if you have a fixed amount of money and inflation happens, it devalues your fixed amount of money unless that rate with which you're making is higher than inflation. Otherwise, it's devaluing your money. So that is a big one. And then there's a point number two that he makes that I think is powerful. Okay, this next part is powerful in that this is probably somebody that's more wealthy than anybody that you know. And yet these words flow out of his mouth as to what he's found. And this is a guy with options to buy planes, whatever. And so I really dig that he's speaking from this perspective.
My 20s and my 30s, I think that I had a very different view on what success was. And it changed a lot when you start to have a family. In other words, you're kind of selfish in your 20s and 30s. And, you're just trying to prove something. You're just trying to survive. You're just trying to build wealth or income or, however you define a family. You start to feel a very different sense of responsibility for other people, of feeding other people, housing other people, putting them through school, all the things that are necessary. Hopefully, many of us realize that that actually is really the most important thing. But before that, you really don't have much of a perspective. So when I finally understood what to me was the ultimate reason for doing all this, which is really freedom, not necessarily money, and freedom to be able to do what I wanted, spend time with my family, those kinds of things, then everything started to shift for me personally. But some people don't do that. Some people just keep grinding through their 40s and their 50s, and then they just leave their family behind. So not everyone thinks of this the same way. But for me, when I immediately started having a family, I realized that that was a much higher priority than what I believed it had been before, which at the time for me in my 20s and 30s was survival and money and income. What I would say is that your definition of success is going to continually change, and you need to stay open-minded. In other words, for me, it's family, it's health, it's relationship, it's freedom, those kinds of things. And money, of course, is just a tool. It's just something on a scoreboard, that's all. But for a lot of people, it's everything. And I think what happens is you lose sight in the pursuit of money can be a problem. Whereas for me, it's just a tool to be able to assist my lifestyle. That's it. And I think that you have to kind of go through that maturity in order to understand that they're two very, very different things. I would say even today, I have to choose between huge opportunities for business and my family. I don't think that ever stops. In other words, there will never not be a huge business opportunity. opportunity. Around every single corner, there's a business opportunity. Every day, every week, every year, there's something that some entrepreneur or some business owner could continue to do. There's always an excuse. There's always a reason. It will never, ever stop. So business opportunities don't just appear sometimes and then go away. They're always there.
So I like this that he's speaking from experience. So maybe we all need to just be able to have all the options in order to make this conscious choice of intention of keeping these things the priorities, because how much is enough? Because I do know that, life is not about massive houses, big cars. You'll find that, I've done all those things. You'll find that those things do not necessarily generate happiness. It's what is enough for you. The things that are important are, your freedoms, your relationships, your family, your health. These are the things that money, is just a tool to support and provide those options. So if you haven't followed Ken McElroy on YouTube, check out his channel. He's always giving away just gold nuggets of real estate tactics if you haven't generated the income that you're content with, or whatever. But I just like hearing his philosophies and mindset on life and what is important as a man who has any option under the sun. So, anyway, wanted to share that with you, share my mentor with you, what I'm following on YouTube as for thought leadership and to keep things fresh and, keeping the tactics alive. And he probably knows he is following, keeps a very close pulse on what's going on with the Federal Reserve, interest rates. So check them out. All the best.